when she gets up to watch the morning news. Doesn't work no more, but tells a lot of stories about her youth. Drinks more lately and got pills in many different colors too. Morning light is showing, she moves the chair to look out at her view. But her shop was built right across the street, and it stands where the sunrise used to be. In the afternoons on the couch to read, goes through old pictures and memories. Our heroes have been forgotten, our heroes so brave and bold. Our heroes have been forgotten, our heroes so they got old. Our heroes have been forgotten, our heroes so brave and bold. Our heroes have been forgotten, our heroes so they got old. Our heroes so they got old. Our heroes so they got old. Smiles they fade because her daughter only visits once a month. Since she got a family of her own, it's kept the two apart. Used to have so many visitors, but now the only one is the nurse that helps her move the chair to look out at the sun. But her shop was built right across the street, and it stands where the sunrise used to be. In the afternoons on the couch to read, goes through old pictures and memories. Our heroes have been forgotten, our heroes so brave and bold. Our heroes have been forgotten, our heroes so they got old. Our heroes have been forgotten, our heroes so brave and bold. Our heroes have been forgotten, our heroes so they got old.
This conference would not have been a reality without the collaborative efforts of all our partner entities and the different men and women behind these organizations. So,
salamat sa lahat ng mga sumuporta sa ating pong IEPEC or International Ethics Peace Education Conference 2022. Kasi kung wala po sa inyong suporta o sa lahat ng mga sumuporta nito, katulad ng AUSN, ng SES Mindanao, ng HWPL per se, at ng Ordinata City University, hindi maging successful ito. Kaya kung anong nararamdaman ko ngayon, syempre galak, tuwa, at kapayapaan sa aking sarili at sana kapayapaan din para sa lahat ang naidulot itong celebration. Sabi yun na kailangan natin ipagpatuloy ito. Kasi marami tayong ginagawang conferences, na atin ang conferences, pero minsan natatapos lang yung sa conference lang. Pagkatapos, pagka-uwi natin sa bahay, ang katanungan doon, ano na ang application ating, or ano na na-apply natin sa nating conference. So sa akin, ang challenge na ito is talaga very challenging siya kasi nasa nabanggit ko kanina, from idea to actual, or the content to the reality. Kasi pag uwi natin sa bahay, kailangan natin isabuhay na ito. Paano? Siyempre yung mga papers na pinag-set natin, yung ating mga plenary na narinig natin, pwede natin apply ito. Paano natin i-apply? Sa ating pamilya, sa ating komunidad, sa ating mga kapitbahay. So kung ma-apply natin ito, then that will be the concrete realization of this program. Kasi magiging walang kwenta ang event na ito, pag uwi sa bahay, magbabalik pa rin tayo doon sa nakaisnan na parang wala tayong narinig sa conference na. And sa nabanggit ko kanina, maraming salamat sa ating partner ng The Education Channel, ng partner na HWPL. Kasi kung wala sa inyo ang event na ito, ay masasabi ko talaga hindi successful. Kasi yung promotion ng peace ay hindi gawa ng isang tao. Hindi lang ng organizer. Hindi lang po ng mga participants. Lahat po tayo ay katulad dito at ang HWPL po ay talagang malaki ang tulong na naibigay ng ambag sa promotion ng conference na ito. Kasi kung ang PEC lamang ang magkakandak ng seminar na ito, conference na ito, without sa HWPN, parang hindi mararamdaman ng ating mga audience. Ano bang advocacy ninyo? Kasi ang Education Channel is a platform, digital platform. So ano ba yung inyong programa na masasabi natin na naka-anchored sa kapayapaan? So masasabi ko, with the partnership sa HWPN, doon naging magtagumpay, naging maayos, at naging mayroong pakinabang ang ating conference because HWPN help us a lot no, sa ang Education Channel para sa conference na to kasi we are promoting not only ethics but also peace, and that peace will become our culture, and that's why in my advocacy I'm promoting culture of peace.
We proceed now with the next paper presenter. Our next paper presenter is currently working on his doctoral degree in philosophy at the Ateneo de Manila University. He holds a master's degree in philosophy from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, Quezon City. In addition, he obtained his license in teaching way back in 2017. He took his Bachelor's of Arts in Philosophy at the Philippine Dominican Center of Institutional Studies. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now listen to the paper entitled Michael Moga S.J. in the Task of Ethics for a Universal Lived World, presented to us by no other than Professor Beaujorne Sirad A. Ramirez from the Philippine Normal University.
Okay, good afternoon. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Okay, I'll just present my slides. Sorry for the background noise here in my home. I don't know what they're doing upstairs, if you can hear it. Okay, I think it's a delay. I hope you could see the PowerPoint presentation before we begin.
Yes, it's sharing, sir.
Okay, so this afternoon, I'm going to discuss one of the ideas of Father Michael Moga, SJ. And this presentation is entitled Father Michael Moga and the Task of Ethics for a Universal Lived World. For those who do not know, Father Michael Moga is a Jesuit. He had his work in the Mindanao area. Actually, I'm still trying to find a biography, but we have a lot of his works published by St. Paul's, and that's why it's a very good way of understanding what he really conveyed when it comes to his philosophical ideas, especially that his materials are still available in stores nationwide. So with this, given his different publications, let us focus this afternoon on the idea of this universal lived world. Now, when it comes to the problem of morality, he started with this situation of the individualist morality. And that's why he said that each human culture has a peculiar way of living. So when we talk about culture, we're talking about a symbolic way of life. And take note, the different timelines of Western philosophy with different emphasis on what it means to be ethical. According to him, and looking at his work, he said that from the time of the Greeks, Western philosophical thought has emphasized a type of thinking which focused on ideas, individual atoms of experience, and has overlooked the context of experience. Since culture is a contextual dimension of experience, it does not show itself in such an idea-centered approach to thinking. Secondly, the spirit of the Enlightenment in the 17th and 18th century guided philosophers to set up a morality based on reason alone, without a consideration of cultural or religious factors. In terms of this, Enlightenment spirit following one's culture would be a failure to recognize the dignity of one's own independent reasoning. And thirdly, the various forms of individualism of modern thought tend to focus on the individual ego as the basis of human life and human morality. From this point, we have to understand that the critique of Father Michael Moga stems from the individualist setup of the Western Western culture. So at least we are clear on where he is coming from. And then, of course, the tendency to focus on the individual ego. Since we're talking about individualist morality, we have to underscore that there is this recognition of individual ego. And this would center on the usual discussion of whether it should be the individualist or the community-based way of looking at ethics. So later, I will emphasize on this again. And that's why when you talk about using culture in morality, he said that it is responsible for many of the goals that guide life. Culture is crucial for any person, our aspirations, our dreams. So, of course, whatever dominates in a certain culture, then those are the things that people would idealize in their life. Second, culture structures the membership of any human society. For example, language, our lifestyle, these are crucial cultural indicators. That's why we love to put labels on everything, whether it be Gen Z, Gen Y, whether you're Ilocano, whether you're Bisaya, or you're Tagalog. So you see, there are so many labels when it comes to culture, to the point that it's really a membership for all of us. Number three, culture provides social roles for individuals. So that's another picture when it comes to culture, because we now have our very own place. Especially, for example, in this social media era, we have a lot of roles for people. And that's why sometimes you can confuse when it comes to celebrities, micro-celebrities, you also have influencers, and whatever title people could think about just to label themselves. And of course, culture has distinctive values. In every culture, there is a specific ideal situation for us to operate upon. And that's why it will also matter whether in a certain culture you value studies, or in another culture, studies are not really that looked up, but you have to work on the well-being of the family. So there would be certain emphasis when it comes to what we should prioritize. And number five, there are basic attitudes that characterize culture. So I think when it comes to our discussion earlier, we're talking about how to understand being Filipino, or what does it mean to be, let's say, a part of a certain demographic group. So those are crucial indicators when it comes to certain attitudes. But at the same time, this is also a way of essentializing people. Because of their attitudes, you start to discriminate them. Because he is like this, therefore, ganito siya sa demographic group. O kaya pag nalaman mo na ganito yung part niya, madami ka ng assumptions. You already have certain assumptions when it comes to his identity. And of course, culture gives us a way of living. And this is very important because this is something that wakes up every morning and, of course, motivates us to work for what is best. And that's why, according to Father Michael Moga, there are many attempts towards a universally lived world against that individualist ethics that we are having, especially in the Western context. First, we are called for an active response to the relationships and involvements with people by living out the said relationships and involvements. We are called to fulfill our obligations to each other and not just dwell on our personal needs and wants. In addition, we are called to accept the reality of our lives affected by diminishments, such as death, old age, etc. More so, the peculiarity of events in our lives, new attitudes will be cultivated to address what is new. In this way, we continuously renew our commitment with the relationships we have. Second, the fullness of a moral act should be understood and not just a principle that we utter in a rote manner. And this is a problem now, especially earlier, we're talking about values education. It seems that we are just doing this because this is habitually done. But the question is, are we authentically doing these things? And that's why the fullness of our moral action is not a one-time, big-time action. It should go forward and develop. In this case, we need to re-understand the place of virtues in our lives. Virtues are not artifacts that we should uphold, but a complexity that includes a part dimension, an invitation to live in a certain way, and challenge for us to be creative in reading or reacting to a certain situation. And of course, life is a courageous call for one to live. By being courageous, we are invited to be active and not passive agents among people. In this manner, we find a way and not objects in creating actions. One problem that we have with our sense of morality is that we have unconsciously treated principles as objects and not lived experiences. Next, struggle to live given the limitedness of the human character. Given the situation that we are living in a broken world, along with death just around the corner, we recognize that we may fall short of what is the ideal. However, this is not something that we should lament, but aspire to be better. And of course, last but not the least, the call to live with others in the form of common good is a crucial invitation for everyone. The call to live with others is highly evident in the family and community. Through these groups, we are all driven toward a certain fullness of life. In this manner, actual fullness of life cannot be seen in the individual level, but in the social level. In this case, to conclude my discussion, Father Michael Moga is inviting us for a pluralist look in the conduct of the ethical, meaning we don't treat principles like objects. We treat them as ways wherein we have certain possibilities when it comes to the appearance of the new contexts, new setups by which we creatively adapt the universal principles. Contemporary individualism would tend to deny the experience of common good that structures human life. We are called for a communitarian way of life when it comes to our ethical life. And this is very important because this narrows down the discussion of Father Michael Moga when it comes to individualist ethics and the communitarian ethics. So what should be the priority? Should it be the individual or should it be the community? That's why there is an emphasis when it comes to culture. And that ends my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sir Ramirez, for that wonderful presentation. Our next paper presenter is an assistant professor at the Department of Social Sciences, College of Arts and Social Sciences, Central Luzon State University, Science City of Muñoz, Nueva Ecija. He obtained Bachelor of Arts major in Classical Philosophy from Maria Assumpta Seminary, Cabanatuan City, Nueva Ecija. He finished his MA in Philosophy at the De La Salle University. His research interests include Martin Heidegger, environmental philosophy, ethics, and logic. The title of his paper that he'll be presenting to us is no other than The Reawakening of One's Respect for Things Through Heidegger's Releasement Towards Things. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, let us welcome Mr. Resty, Ruel, Borjal of the Central Luzon State University.
Good afternoon once again. So my paper is entitled reawakening of one's respect for things to Heidegger's releasement toward things. The effects of modernity and environmental issues greatly influence every single element of human living, from physical and mental to environmental disruption in general. My paper uses Martin Heidegger's environmental philosophy and illustrates how the revealing of modern technology affects the crisis of environment. It touches the effects of modernity in encouraging humans to an exploitative and manipulative power over nature. And lastly, the possible escape from the abyss of enframing through reawakening of one's respect for things through releasement toward things. This study argues in favor for the need to reevaluate and redirect the human person's proper disposition with technology into a mode of releasement that enhances both the person and the environment. It explores Heidegger's project, which provides a crucial ground for understanding on how we might rescue human and the rest of nature in a culture increasingly dominated by modern technology. Furthermore, it touches on Heidegger's views on how nature can become meaningful for human beings. We cannot deny the fact that human life is inconceivable without the presence of technology, since both the extent concerning nature and the way we participate in the world are bounded with technology. This issue is critical. Why? Because modern technology, as we can see, has fundamentally altered or changed human actions in such a way that it threatens the continued existence of the human and non-human worlds. To deal with the possibility of releasement from the essence of technology, it is necessary to return to one's thinking, that is through meditative thinking, to shed light on the way human actions has been fundamentally transformed by modern technology. We go now with the concepts of Heidegger, the Gestalt and enframing, or it is also called as calculative thinking, or the theoretical attitude in which it challenges entities. This kind of thinking or this kind of attitude is present in our modern age or modern technology. Modern technology is not seen as helping to come to being, but rather modern technology forces into being. So there is this kind of violation, there is this kind of manipulation, there is this kind of control by modern technology. In the question concerning technology, Heidegger acknowledges that since humans can and do participate in the many ways technology manifests, he condemned the view of nature as a mere resource for human consumption. Modern technology, as Heidegger mentioned, is revealing. But this kind of revealing that rules in modern technology is challenging. So Heidegger also emphasizes that this enframing, human beings first failed to encounter themselves and their essence. Now, in our period, in our era today, we failed to encounter ourselves. And framing affects us. It never collects itself because it is always on the move, rushing from one place to another. Second, our authenticity is lost. It greatly affects the revealing process of being since it is intentionally challenged. And lastly, we cannot be ourselves. Why? We are in a delusion, the forgetting of being, since being is interpreted in some manner. So in framing covers up the truth, as Heidegger mentioned, and framing blocks the shining forth and holding sway of truth. According to Heidegger, enframing is the manner in which being manifests in the age of technology. Enframing allows being to reveal reality as a standing reserve. As a standing reserve, this kind of enframing limits one's way of thinking. So the reality is translated into calculable. Thus, this kind of thinking manipulate the world. The human thinks, the way we think, talks, and acts reduces into a world of objectification and manipulation. So a free relation to technology is possible only by questioning it. So we must arrive into a mode of attunement in which it encompasses a mindset of being reflective, being respectful, and appreciative of nature. In that sense, we might experience a shift in attitude characterized by wonder and respect. So Heidegger acknowledges the legitimacy of modern science. No, he does not reject technology. He does not reject this modern science. But he challenges its forgetfulness of another order of truth, which is the truth of revealing. So in contrast to Gestel, Gelensenheit, or Releasement, also known as meditative thinking, could provide the ground for a reawakened response to what is happening in our environment. It provides a character for a fitting relation between human beings and the natural environment. So this is in total contrast in my previous slide, the Gestel. So this is meditative thinking. So as a response to the dangers of enframing, calculative and power-seeking interests of modern technology, on the other hand, releasement could allow us to cultivate a free relation to technology, as well as being open to things. It suggests a change from a challenging attitude to an attitude of respect. And in that manner, it might rescue human being and the rest of nature in a culture increasingly dominated by modern technology. So through meditative thinking, a way is possible for a saving power, no? So that humankind can escape, or it's a possible way out from enframing. It also allows to cultivate a relationship that is free, no? A relation that is not manipulated, a relation that is not controlled by technology. Releasement toward things, and also as being open to mystery. And ultimately, it grants us an attitude of respect toward things. Thus, to have a fuller understanding of one's situation, no, in the world that surrounds us. Heidegger's description of enframing as the supreme danger of our age, this modern technology has led us to interpret ourselves as lords and masters of nature, rather than being the shepherds of being. Thus, this brought us into the era of environmental crisis. On the other hand, Heidegger's theory of stewardship in relation to the essence of technology could somehow establish a potential relation or a potential connection to reawaken this kind of relation to being. Thus, it allows us to participate in the unfolding, no, hindi the challenging, but rather in the unfolding of being beyond the sphere or beyond the control of modern technology. So this kind of thinking, or in this way, we grant things their self-standing, not like the Gestel that entities or things are being challenged. So when we allow, or when we grant their self-standing, thus allowing us to come into an ethical relation to things, to beings, or even as persons or as individuals, which can be attained when we release, no, things, or our anticipation of things, we allow them as they are, or we let things be. This attitude of respect would allow us to have a possible response to environmental crisis. It also allows us to encounter nature more fully, unlike when we challenge them. It promotes an engagement with nature characterizes not of a challenging one, but with an attitude of respect, which is essentially in contrast with the measuring of the sciences. So with see nature, or we relate nature not as just mere presence at hand, or we communicate with nature, or we also connect with nature, and not as them treated as standing reserve, and grants the being and the rest of nature that we encounter to uphold their independence outside of their relevance to human needs and desire. Thus, reawakening one's respect for things could lead technology to take a possible way that could cooperate with the unfolding of the being of beings rather than challenging them forth solely for the purposes of scientific and technological consumption. So here comes our essence, the meditative thinking, or our meditative involvement with the world, that could somehow lead us, that could somehow permit us towards a proper care with nature or to our environment. It helps us generate a better look into our actions, as well as to think meaningfully beyond the sphere of modern science and technology. So it urges us to avoid exploitative and challenging revealing of things. The technological order does not approach things in a respectful manner. So technological viewpoint affects the gathering of things. Like what I have mentioned before, it challenges entities, or it challenges things. When we respect things, it allows being and the rest of nature to disclose themselves freely. The kind of disclosure is free. Now, there is no manipulation, there is no control. Because technology hampers the happening of gathering. It injures things when while it creates distress in us, where it also brings restlessness and dissatisfaction. Respect for things translates towards a meaningful relation, not a challenging one, with the beings and the nature that we encounter, and thereby become an essential part of our lives. Thus, when we respect nature, an authentic environmental concern also manifests. Reawakening this kind of attitude allows being to gain intelligibility. So this is our essence. Intelligibility and access that could release humanity from the dangers of enframing, from the dangers we have through modern technology. Reawakening one's respect for things allows us to organize our way of thinking. It establishes an essential ground for our existence and meaningful relations with the world around us. Third, reawakening one's respect for things allows for the revelation of being. It shows a path for disclosure of beings and to restrain any form of manipulation and control over nature. Lastly, reawakening one's respect for things unblocks the way for a richer encounter with the natural environment. Thus, it promotes the development of an authentic environmental concern. As our response to the many issues of environmental concerns, and as well as the dangers of calculative and power-seeking interests of modern technology, this releasement toward things allows us to cultivate a free relation to technology, as well as being open to things. Our confinement to the calculative thinking mindset, the modern technology leads us to forget our own nature, the forgetfulness of being. And it also happens that we neglect our capacity for meditative thinking, thoughtlessness, and it blocks the other modes of revealing and seeing the world. So because of the problem that we encounter, or the danger that we encounter from the modern technology, the way of thinking becomes one dimension. It becomes calculative thinking, so the theoretical attitude. In conclusion, Heidegger reminds us that the foundation of an environmental ethics begins with a reconsideration of what it means to be human. It is primarily concerned with how our treatment and involvement with the things and others are essentially associated to our understanding of the nature around us. Thus, the more we understand nature, the more we fully know ourselves. Releasement toward things grant things their self-standing towards a free relation to technology. And respect for things by letting things be, which allows us to meditate and thus the avoidance of thoughtlessness. Modern devastation of nature increases the risks where human beings are exposed to extreme dangers and therefore to subsequent issues of challenging the nature. Meditative thinking is the saving power that could help us from the many dangers of technology. Like what I said before, it could lead us a way out from enframing. So this is the alternative, the other way of thinking, not just the calculative thinking of the modern sciences. For Heidegger, we must gain intelligibility. This is our essence. That is meditative thinking, which is part of our nature. Meditative thinking avoids thoughtlessness. It promotes calmness, appeals to be cautious, and to regards respect for things. In making our many considerations, human beings as shepherd of beings needs this kind of thinking that regards protectively. One also needs to reawaken an attitude of respect toward things through releasement of things. Thank you very much. That ends my presentation.
Mr. Borjal, for educating us on the concept of enframing, and the dangers that it poses, especially when the person is being engulfed by technology. Our next paper presenter ay isang faculty ng De La Salle College of St. Benilde at kasalukuyang tinatapos ang kanyang doktorado ng Pilipino sa Universidad ng Batangas. Bilang guro, siya ay ginawaran ng iba't ibang pagkilala sa larangan ng pagtuturo. Nailathala rin siya sa iba't ibang pahayagan at magazine para sa kanyang kontribusyon gamit ang teknolohiya sa pagtuturo ng Pilipino at kinatawan ng Pilipinas sa South Korea. Itinanghal na 2005 Innovative Teacher of the Year, manunulat, tagapagpanayam, hurado, mananaliksik at panelista ng mga research, colloquium at thesis, tagapagsulong ng asignaturang Pilipino, kawal ng wika at mangingibig ng panitikan. Naniniwalang ang pagtuturo ay hindi niya ikinakabubuhay, ito ang kanyang buhay at ang nag-iisang birhen sa lupa. Mga ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Sir Francisco Garcia from De La Salle College of St. Benilde, who will present to us his paper entitled Programang Pangwika, Tugon sa Salingkurang Pagsasanay para sa mga Gurong Mangyan.
Maraming salamat po, Professor Jonathan. Sa lahat po ng binanggit nyo, ang totoo lang doon ay ang huling birhen sa lupa. Hindi, magandang hapon po sa lahat. No? So, isa pong malaking kagalakan sa akin na ibahagi sa inyo ang aking pag-aaral. No? Mula po kanina, ang mga nakita natin mga pag-aaral ay ginawa mula sa wikang Ingles. Ngayong hapong ito, bilang huling tagapahagi ng pag-aaral, ang aking pag-aaral po ay ng Programang Pangwika, Tugon sa Salingkurang Pagsasanay para sa mga Gurong Mangyan. Ang dakilang mithiin ng edukasyon ay ang patuloy na pagpapahusay ng bawat individual na mas malinang pa nila ang kanilang pagkatao at ang pagbabagong nagaganap habang sila ay nakisangkot sa lipunan. Ito ay may isa sa katuparan lamang kung magkakaroon ng pagkakataon ang bawat isa na mapaunlad nila ang kanilang mga sarili. Ipinagpapalagay na mas nagiging mabuti ang kalagayan ng isang tao kung tinatamasa nila ang kabutihan at kaunlaran mula sa lipunang kanilang ginagalawan. Mahalagang mailahad ang kabutihang maidudulot ng profesionalisasyon ng bawat tao upang maagapayan nila ang lipunan sa tulong ng edukasyon, akademikong institusyon at ilang mga pagsasanay bilang pagsusulong ng mga transformatibong edukasyon. Bilang tugon sa mga pagbabagong nagaganap sa larang ng edukasyon, nabuo ang ilang kaisipang tumatalakay sa paggamit ng iba't ibang modelo ng transformatibong edukasyon. May ilang global na kampanya na naglalayong isa konteksto ang individual na pagkatuto ng mga mag-aaral na kasangkot sa mas malaking struktural na talastasang bayan. Ang isang konkretong halimbawa nito ay ang Declaration and Integrated Framework for Action on Education for Peace, Human Rights and Democracy. Ito ay nanggaling sa pangunguna ng United Nations bilang tugon ng United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Education o UNESCO sa ginanap na international na komperensya sa edukasyon. Ang deklarasyon at balangkas ng pagkilos ay nilikha upang sagutin ang ilan sa mga pangangailangang may kinalaman sa kapayapaan, pag-unlad, pag-aaglahi, karahasan, agresibong nasyonalismo, kawalan ng paggalang sa iba't ibang reliyon at paglabag sa karapatang pantao. Itinakda ng nasabing deklarasyon ang panlipunang oryentasyon sa edukasyon at bilang pangunahing layunin at pinakadakilang misyon na maitaas ang kalidad ng edukasyon at pagtuturo sa bisa ng mga pagsasanay sa loob at labas ng bansa para sa guro at para sa kabataan. Ito ang naging salalayan ng aking pag-aaral. Inihalayhay ang pag-aaral na ito sa mga teorya ni De Jesus, Boro et al. At mula sa pagbabalangkas na isinagawa ng Semeyo, na nagpapatunay ng kahalagaan sa pagdalo ng iba't ibang palihan, seminar at fora na nakatutulong at nagbibigay ambag sa bahagi ng lahat ng mga kaguruan upang mamukadkad ang kanilang kaalaman at magamit ito sa kanilang pagtuturo at mapataas ang kalidad ng lahat ng mga kaguruan mula sa kanilang kaalaman sa aralin at kasanayan sa pagtuturo, kwalipikasyong tinapos. Sa ganitong bahagi ay matutulungan ding maiangat ang kamalayan, kaalaman at kultural na pagpapahalaga ng bawat mag-aaral na kanilang tinuturuan at tuturuan. Sa madaling salita, ang pananaliksik na ito ay naglalayong makapagplano ng isang modelong pagsasanay para sa guro ng Pilipino na nakasanlig mula sa implementasyon ng K-12 Basic Education Program. At ito ay naglalayong mabigyan ng pagsasanay ang mga mangyang guro upang higit nilang mapaunlad ang pagtuturo ng asignaturang Filipino at mapaunlad din ang pagkatuto ng mag-aaral na tanging dahilan ng mananaliksik sa pagsasagawa ng pag-aaral. Sa hupong ng pag-aaral, ito ang una't huling salalayan ng mananaliksik sa pagbuo ng papel na ito. Napansin na sa ilang mga pananaliksik na natagpuan sa kasalukuyan, nakitang wala pang gumawa ng programang Pangwika na nakatuon sa Salingkurang pagsasanay batay sa K-12 Basic Education Program na naglalayong pataasin ang akademikong kagalingan at kasanayang pagganap ng mga guro at estudyanteng Mangyan. Ang pananaliksik na ito ay tatangkang makabuo ng isang programang Pangwika na isang bahagi ng pagpaplanong Pangwika. Ito ay nauugnay sa Salingkurang programa para sa mga gurong Mangyan na nagtuturo sa paaralang Mangyan sa dibisyon ng Oriental Mindoro. Susubukan tugunan ang mga sumusunod na katanungan. Bilang isa, ang katangian ng mga gurong Mangyan sa Pilipino sa mga paaralang Mangyan sa dibisyon ng Mindoro batay sa antas ng pinag-aralan, karanasan sa pagtuturo, sanayan at dinaluhang seminar hinggil sa pagtuturo ng Filipino, organisasyong kinaaniban at tribong kinabibilangan. Batay sa pagtataya ng mga daluguro at guro, ano ang lawak ng manifestasyon ng mga sumusunod na competencies? Pagkilala sa kulturang Mangyan, pagkakapantay-pantay sa pagtingin, paggalang sa kulturang Mangyan, pagpapaunlad ng mga katutubong kultura, pansariling pagkakakilanlan at integridad. Paano nagkaiba ang pagtataya ng dalawang grupo sa lawak ng manifestasyon ng mga competencies? Mayroon bang mahalagang pagkakaiba? Ano ang mga isyu at hamon sa pagtuturo ng Filipino? Base sa pagsusuri, ano ang salingkurang pagsasanay na maaaring imungkahi? Ang pananaliksik na ito ay nagawa sa panahon ng pandemya, kaya't ang inyong lingkod ay lubos na nahirapan sa pagkuha ng datos, ngunit dahil sa kagustuhan naming matulungan kung ano nga ba ang magiging dahilan para lalong mapagbuti ang pagtuturo ng mga kapatid nating gurong Mangyan, ang mananaliksik ay gumamit ng talatanungan, data analysis, roundtable discussion o focus group discussion. Sa komparensya upang mapag-usapan ang kinalabasan ng antas ng pagtanggap ng mga gurong Mangyan, suliraning kinakaharap at mga paksang maisasama sa pagbabalangkas ng salingkurang pagsasanay. Isang modelo ng balangkas ng salingkurang pagsasanay sa programang wika na nakatuon sa K-12 Basic Education Program na tutugon sa malawakang pagtanggap ng mga guro ang mabubuo at isinama sa pag-aaral na ito upang magsilbing batayan ng isinagawang pag-aaral ng mananaliksik sa mga suliranin at pangangailangan ng pag-aaral. Sa ethical na konsiderasyon, ipinaliwanag ng mananaliksik na ang lahat na naging kabahagi sa isinagawang pag-aaral ay lubos na naunawaan ang isinagawang pananaliksik, kung saan ay hindi magbibigay kapinsalaan sa abot ng kanilang kaalaman, karanasan bilang respondente at propesyon bilang guro sa mga paaralan na matatagpuan sa lalawigan at dibisyon ng Mindoro. Anumang nakalap na impormasyon ay pananatiliing confidential at sa anumang pagkakataon ay maaari nilang bawiin ang lahat ng kanilang tugon at naging kasagutan bilang respondente sa anumang pagkakataon na kanilang gugustuhin. Sa kinalabasan ng pag-aaral, nasumpungan na may pagtanggap sa mga kaguroang Mangyan, ngunit ito ay nangangailangang pampaunlarin, pagyamanin at panatilihin ang mayaman nilang kultura at maging kasaysayan hindi lamang sa kanilang lalawigan maging sa buong bansa. Napatunayan na ang bawat paaralan o institusyon na may mga gurong Mangyan na nagtuturo ay gumagawa ng mga hakbang kung paano pa nila maipakikilala ang kanilang mga katutubong kultura na may paggalang, respeto at batas na para lamang sa mga katutubong gurong Mangyan, ngunit sinisikap na sumunod sa kung ano ang itinakda ng kanilang paaralan. Ang salingkurang pagsasanay para sa mga gurong Mangyan ay magagamit upang masanay, mapaghusay at maipakilala nila ang kanilang mga aralin, sining at kultura hindi lamang sa probinsya ng Oriental Mindoro kundi maging sa iba pang panig ng ating bansa at maging sa mga karatig na bansa. Ang dinisenyong programang Pangwika ay nagtatagay ng mga elemento, bahagi at disenyo. Salingkurang pagsasanay na nagsimula sa ebaluasyon ng kahandaan ng mga gurong Mangyan sa Pilipino sa pagbabago sa ilalim ng K-12 Basic Education Curriculum. Batay sa kinalabasan ng ebalwasyon, may mga kasanayang ditanggap ang mga gurong Mangyan na maaaring matulungan sa bisa ng salingkurang pagsasanay. Ang salingkurang pagsasanay ay nakatuon sa mga kaalamang maibabahagi ng mga kaguruan sa kanilang institusyong kinabibilangan. Ang salingkurang pagsasanay ay maituturing na pagpaplano sa mga isyong may kinalaman sa wika, kahalagahan at mga pamamaraan kung paano may ipatutupad ng wasto sa bawat paaralang kinabibilangan ang mga programang nakatuon sa pagpapaunlad ng kabisaan o kahusayan sa estratehiya, metodo at gawain ng mga kaguroang dumalo. Sa konklusyon, batay sa interpretasyon na may katamtaman ang lawak, nangangailangan pa na maipakilala ang uri ng pamumuhay ng mga kapatid na Mangyan, maging ang kanilang kulturang kinamiyasnan, paniniwala at ang sistemang pang-edukasyon. Bagamat ang nasabing pagtugon ay nagpapakita ng positibong pananaw ng kanilang kapwa-guro, mga tao sa kanilang paligid na mas mapaghusayan pa ng mabuti ang mga programa sa salingkurang pagsasanay na lilinang sa pamamaraan ng pagtuturo ng mga guro sa antas ng elementarya. Napatunayan na ang salingkurang pagsasanay ay nakatuon sa mga kaalaman na maibabahagi ng mga kaguruan sa kanilang institusyong kinabibilangan. Ang salingkurang pagsasanay ay maituturing na pagpaplano sa mga isyong may kinalaman sa wika, kahalagahan at mga pamamaraan kung paano maipatutupad ng wasto sa bawat paaralang kinabibilangan ang mga programang nakatuon sa pagpapaunlad ng kabihasaan, kahusayan, sa estratehiya, metodo, gawain ng mga kaguroang dumalo. At ito po ilang ginamit kong sanggunian sa aking pag-aaral. Maraming salamat po. Muli, ang aking pag-aaral ay tungkol sa mga kapatid nating Mangyan. Programang Pangwika, tugon sa salingkurang pagsasanay para sa mga gurong Mangyan.
Maraming salamat, Professor Garcia, sa pagbibigay diin sa importansya ng wikang Pilipino sa sektor ng edukasyon, lalo na sa konteksto ng ating mga kapatid na Mangyan.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. James Canete, and to all of the presenters that we have this afternoon. At this point, we will be having our awarding of certificates for the presenters that we had. So, first off, I would like to call Mr. Jimmy Paulo V. Valeza as a paper presenter during the conduct of the International Ethics and Peace Education Conference 2022, held at Ordinata City University, Ordinata City, Pangasinan on August 10 to 12, 2022, given this 10th day of August 2022 at Ordinata City University, signed by the convener, Professor Mark Anthony Latasa, and by the University President, Dr. Amihan April M. Alcazar. Miss Ma'am. Also, in this International Ethics and Peace Education Conference 2022. Alright, so thank you so much, ma'am. We also have our presenters online, so let's also flash their certificates. We also have Dr. Dastajer Sultan Sharif as a paper presenter as well for day 1 of the International Ethics and Peace Education Conference 2022. Next, we also have Ms. Amador Arsamamat as a paper presenter as well during the conduct of the International Ethics and Peace Education Conference day 1. We also have, this one is awarded to Beaujorne Sirad, Ramirez as a paper presenter also during the conduct of the International Ethics and Peace Education Conference 2022. Resty Ruel Borjal as a paper presenter as well for the conduct of the International Ethics and Peace Conference 2022. Another one, we have Mr. Francisco S. Garcia as a paper presenter during the conduct of the International Ethics and Peace Conference. Last but not the least, we also would like to present a certificate of appreciation to Mr. James Canete as the moderator during the conduct again of the International Ethics and Peace Education Conference 2022. Thank you so much, Mr. Canete. So before we leave this venue, a round of applause, please. Alright, so before we end, I request the people here on site to please stand here in front so that you will also have a opportunity, of course, with our executive.